My name is Lili Litovskaya. I'm fashion designer. I am here in Paris and ask everyone, stand with Ukraine, stop the war, and know, world, you have to know that this war concerns everyone. And Ukraine right now save the war. You have to know about this. Thank you.
With the help of the French Federation for Haute Couture and Fashion, Lili Litovskaya was able to get out of Kyiv with her daughter, but the designer had to leave her collection behind. Unable to put on the show she'd planned, she instead put up these barcodes, which direct people to the work of her fellow Ukrainian designers. With war raging in Ukraine, it's not easy to know how to speak about fashion, if at all. But fashion has always been as much about politics and activism as it has been about clothes. They are, after all, a means of communicating a message. At Balenciaga, Demna Gvasalia was always planning on revealing his collection against a hostile backdrop, with models battling snowstorms and trailing what look like bin bags. It's a reference to the designer's own experience of fleeing his native Georgia in 1993, during a civil war backed by Moscow. Journalists, clients and buyers are seated behind glass, spectators to the misery.
I think that there are so many political problems in the world today that sometimes, as people working in the creative industries, we have to ask ourselves what we're useful for. It's important that we understand that freedom of expression, the messages that we can communicate with our work, well, that's important too. Keeping the faith and continuing to transform the world of tomorrow, even if that's not always easy.
Marine Serrre has chosen to reveal the creative process behind her work, all of which has a focus on recycling and upcycling.
What I've tried to do there, on the floor where we're all working together, beyond just taking a look at the clothes, is really try to understand the item of clothing. Really taking the time to understand how much time goes into making something. Who are the people behind that process? To really show off the skill of the artisans and all my teams working on this floor. The working process becomes a work of art. And that work of art is about making that selection. That's what this is about. And actually, something that I often say is that the process of transformation is about transforming things that already exist. Things that already make up the world we live in, even if those things aren't always easy to take in. And the question is, how to transform something so that it's both useful, because of course clothes cover our bodies, but also so that it's something that reflects who we are, our values.
This season, environmental concerns and recycling in particular were front and centre for many designers. At the young label Atlein, ANTONIN TRON worked wonders with kite surf sails, among other things.
At Atlein, we've always been really into recycling. A little while ago, we used recycled plastic fibres to create completely new materials. We've created new types of jersey exclusively for the label, and it's fair to say you couldn't see it had been recycled. And for this season, the idea was to celebrate the archaeology of the workshop. There's just so much stuff in there. It's filled with things we found, and we wanted to bring our workshop into the space of the runway show. That was it. And yeah, the dress made out of coffee capsules, I'd say that's the piece that most powerfully represents that idea.
Former soldier Benmoyal studied fashion at Central St Martin's in London in 2013.
I just got out of the army, so I was a former parachutist, and my main aim was to try to regain some of the naivety that I'd lost during my military service. And I'd evoked that with the magnetic strips on cassette tapes, because for me, that symbolizes my childhood. So you have a jacket that's made entirely out of the magnetic strips from old cassettes. All the brown parts are audio tape, and the coloured parts are either cotton or tencel. It depends on what we have each season. They're really iconic pieces for the label because they're really what got us noticed.
Kevin Germanier is a fellow St Martin's alumnus and has dressed the likes of Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift and Bjork.
At the heart of it, what I do is make clothes with humour. People need to take pleasure from what I do. I dress my models like aliens because I also play a huge amount of video games. All of the denim that you see is actually made from old stock that I source from Bangkok. People sometimes think I put things where I do because I just do it randomly, but actually sometimes I do it like that to hide stains on the denim, or maybe there are holes to cover, that sort of thing. I really think that this denim is a good example of that.
Fashion in wartime is a delicate business, but this Fashion Week labels were unanimous in their support for Ukraine, particularly through donations to the UN's refugee agency.